We really have to talk about how we're going to produce the vast amounts of hydrogen needed for our energy future. There are different methods, each named after a different colour, and there are almost as many opinions on which colour is the right one. I'm optimistic, but I can't help asking myself if our path to a zero-emission energy future is still completely unclear. Hello and welcome to a new episode of minus 253 degrees Celsius, which is our expert talk that gets to the point, the boiling point of hydrogen. Today we're going to talk about colors, and to clear up my little bit of color blindness, I've invited Matthias Ziebell to join us. Matthias is Senior Vice President for Sales, Energy Market and Business Development. Matthias, it's great to have you here. Let's begin with two of the simplest colors, perhaps, gray and brown hydrogen. They don't really help reduce emissions, do they?
I would agree. Grey hydrogen, for example, is made out of natural gas, and we want to reduce emissions on this globe, and there are a lot of emissions coming with natural gas, so grey hydrogen is not really the future, I would say.
So what colors would be more acceptable?
Green hydrogen is my favorite because when we take mid to long term, there will be a lot of green hydrogen opportunities coming up in certain countries where we have a lot of wind and solar energy, which we then can use to produce green hydrogen. But we have pink hydrogen, we have turquoise, we have blue hydrogen, a lot of colors we have.
Could we simplify it and make it easy and just say grey is bad and green is good?
I would say that's too easy because you really have case by case to be very differentiated what kind of hydrogen makes sense from a local perspective, from a logistic perspective, from a CO2 emissions and a lot of things.
Let's talk about the other colors. Let's start with one of my favorite colors, at least from a color perspective, pink. What about pink hydrogen?
So pink hydrogen is you have a nuclear power. You produce electricity. Based on that electricity, you have the electrolyzer with fresh water, and then you have pink hydrogen. Yeah? There are discussions about nuclear, what to do with the waste. And second, there are discussions if the society will follow a nuclear strategy.
So you're making me think about pink. You think I should maybe change my favorite color to turquoise?
Oh. Turquoise is based on the pyrolysis, and it also uses natural gas. So there are, again, emissions coming with this color of hydrogen. Plus, there are a big question mark on the cost. So the cost might be very high.
Let's talk about another color, which I'm not even sure is a color. That's the color white. Now, in chemistry class at school, I always learned that there's no or next to no hydrogen deposits on Earth. What is the situation with that?
There is some white hydrogen you can find on Earth, and it's like a little bit the gold digging. I think it has a very small CO2 footprint, but you really have to find it. And maybe let's meet here again in 10 years and take a look how much white hydrogen has been discovered.
Finally, what about blue? This is one of the most discussed colors that I see in the industry at the moment. Can you tell us a little about why?
Blue hydrogen is made out of natural gas. So you produce based on the methane within the natural gas, the hydrogen, and you take away the CO2 with carbon capture back to the earth. Yeah. But nevertheless, this technology is developing and it's kind of startup technology.
Do you actually have a favorite color amongst them?
There are different colors, but all the times you have to think about very differentiated what kind of value chain is behind. Meaning when you take a look at the supply of components, the supply of blue hydrogen, you need to consider the supply of natural gas. And on the other side of the supply chain, you have the logistics, for example. Also, you have to consider that. So there are a lot of factors where I'm not a favorite of one. You really have to consider and differentiate where to use it. Nevertheless, there's a very clear target to go for green hydrogen because it's zero emissions.
It does actually sound that it's not so easy. You mentioned a target. Let's talk about 2050. What's your prediction for who will win the race of the colors?
For example, take a look at the European Union. So there's a very clear target 2050 to have 10% of all energy consumption on clean hydrogen. That's quite challenging. It's a lot of infrastructure investment behind that. Nevertheless, that's a very good qualitative target as an example for Europe.
Matthias, thank you very much once again for joining us today. You certainly made my life as an optimist more colorful. Join us once again in one of our next episodes of minus 253 degrees Celsius. It's the monthly expert talk that gets to the point, the boiling point of hydrogen.